Boat rides are the fun part. Heading to Maya Ruins. Rapid trip with friends. Always soft drinks and sweetie pies. Andrew and Tina's wedding. Pite and Tina's wedding. Joseph and Ive's wedding. Christmas time. Isaac and Mildred's wedding. Obvious. Dad bought a grader in the US for the community, and he bought a semi too. He enjoyed buying new tractors for us. He said he wasn't rich enough to buy used tractors. After a hard day's work, I think it's the tractor my dad bought when he was just married. Dad and most of his brothers, they were nine all, but these are not all there. A little dress up time. I think we went traveling and goodbyes or something. I'm not sure. Corny and mom and dad. 3 children still at home on someday. I think this was the last load of milk after the dairy shut down on our yard. Kissing time. I think this is married a show somewhere. In Mexico, one of the cattle shows he went to annually most of the time. Put on corny with him. One of his better Holstein cows. Got the ride. Fixing fence, building fence. Green Hills property. Right where he belonged. So got a grader for the community and scales for my dad. And ready to ship into shipyard in Blue Creek. BLPA, junk car there. Riding horse with my dad and all his sons. One took the picture, so he's missing on the picture. Frank Platt and my dad. Dad had a birthday on July 12, and we did a new roof for him. He was in Canada. And here they came back on their last trip as they traveled alone from Manitoba. Back to the Riverside ranch there where he had his cattle he liked. In his new office. Here he's still figuring out the details. Dad ready for a load of scales and squeezes to shipyard. Did a driveway for Yalbach Sawmill. Family camping at Banana Bank. This is in Kentucky, at my dad's brother's place. My mom's brother there, John K. Friesen from Canada. Little girls on Grandpa's lap. Family lunch at Banana Bank, I think. Riding horses, the grandsons joined in. Finally, a cook his size. He loved the grandkids as long as he lived. At Eddie Mary's place. I don't know who's in that little blanket. Abe and Jake, Grandpa. One of the cattle expos in Spanish Lookout, I think, or I'm not sure. Most of the Friesen brothers and in-law, Uncle Klaus and Uncle Joe. My dad there. He had 3 more brothers out in Barton Creek somewhere. They didn't show up for this picture. Mom and Dad's 40th wedding anniversary at Green Acres at Chinona. Close to Sleeping Giant there. Breakfast at Midway. Uncle Heinrich with my dad. John Carr and my dad, where he was becoming a little ill already. Angel Sue, always working for my dad. Getting slower here. On top of that little hill behind the garage. I guess on the way up. Doing bales, bluestone bales. People meet at the river at the anniversary of settlement time in March. At the riverside where we swim. His favorite spot to sit, around that little plastic table. Time for a lap time. Mountain Pine Ridge camping, family. Dad just came for the day. Mom and Dad, they didn't stay for the night. Got him up onto Baldy Beacon in a Jeep. Amalio Sewell was often his driver. Amalio Sewell passed away a couple years ago already. Christmas time looks like. Always the best lunch at Christmas. He got himself a new office chair from our family. It's time to say the poems at Christmas time. Okay? Both had to put their feet in the water for... His mind was already failing here. It was his first birthday where he lost his thinking. Oh, it's not. This one is turning 80, so it's the last birthday. Help our boys remember Grandpa. This is where he was for 4.5 years, basically all the time. Okay, we'll have an open mic basically. There's immediate family that want to share stuff or by singing or sharing things, and I'm sure there's going to be time for more friends if they want to join in. I have some notes that I just wanted to maybe repeat a little bit of my life story that I already read and at the funeral. My dad was a hero in a number of ways. He tackled many dangerous jobs in securing ferries and flood waters. And then he would also grab the most dirty jobs. So dirty that I didn't want to go with him to do those jobs. Like stitching up horses when they got ran through the fence and got torn up, stitching up cow udders and stuff like that, pulling unborn calves that were overdue. And then when a stubborn cow would get on the trailer, he would just kind of swipe the shit out of the tail and bite the tail and make it go. I haven't done all those things yet. He took on hard work with a passion to get Spanish cow economy going. By pushing the dairy industry, milking his cows 4 o'clock in the morning, and then jump on the delivery truck and take milk to the city. Importing Holstein heifers and exporting cattle. So his cattle trade started way before my days. The story that he has told me, and I might be wrong in little details there, but He was rounding up cattle for Mr. Nord. He had a ranch on Barton Ramy. Barton Ramy was not part of Spanartic Out to begin with. And so that cattle ranch there was slowly being sold out, and he would grab cattle, lasso them with the rope, and tie them to the tail of his mule or a horse. I think it was mule. And he would walk behind the cow and keep the cow going in the trail. So the mule go ahead, and the cow was tied to the tail. And crossed them to the river, and once there was 2 or 3 animals at Mr. Nord, time to load them on a truck and head to Bleece City. There were a number of different friends from Spanartic Out that helped him haul cattle to Bleece City. So the later one I remember best is Ben Penner. We loved that because we got to ride trucks sometimes to shipyard and thing. My dad would gladly go to Bleece City to untie those mad animals because nobody would do it. And he would do it for a plate of rice and beans and a Coke. The Martinique cattle export was one of the highlights of his time, maybe already in BLPA or during all his cattle trade. And he exported a shipload of old horses. Peter probably can fill in that one there. One thing that I enjoyed, I will talk out of my perspective a little bit. So for him to get to Bleece City every so often to deliver beef, he needs a driver. Once I was old enough to drive, I got to drive many times, and so did all my brothers. Take slaughter beef to the city and to different retailers. And the best one was when he went to the airport and threw those slaughtered quarters into a Cessna 172 where the seats were taken out and away to San Pedro. He always overloaded that plane a little bit, and the pilot said, "It's okay." One time the pilot overloaded too much, and he dipped the wheels in the sea a little bit on that small airport at the city, but he pulled out. He didn't go into the water, but he made it to San Pedro. I sometimes wish the plane had an extra seat so that I could go with the plane, but it would have been too much weight. The road building and installing bridges, namely Guana Creek, ferry ramps engineering at Youngbang Ferry, installing Beaver Dam Bridge, where he was part of helping put it together. So if you cross Beaver Dam Bridge to Bleece City, my dad helped the government align the creeks there and made sure the bolts were all in. He helped constructing the road with Manolo, maybe some more guys, to Santa Familia, and the road from Never-Delay to Valley of Peace. And one time I got to ride to Valley of Peace. I know which little cemeteries we had along, and we went fixing the road where the refugees started living there, and Spanartic Out was helping that community where I think Uncle Close has lived there, and some more friends have lived at Valley of Peace, where the road was being fixed, and my dad was part of that. One day he drove that grader over that little drum ferry. The ferry was a bit too small for the weight of the grader, and he went a little bit too far forward, and the ferry just went over, and the front end of the grader just stuck into the center, in the middle of the river. The engine is luckily in the back, so the engine was on the ferry and the front wheel in the middle of the river. It didn't hurt the grader, but I don't know how they got it out. I don't remember. He taught to drive me that F12 grader at the age of 14. Dust and heat didn't matter. I so much wanted to drive that grader. Banana Bank was some new property and doing drainage. My dad was running the whole world and worked towards success. He bought brand new tractors for field work. He said he couldn't afford used tractors. My dad was very busy, which brought lots of absence from home. I learned to figure out more work independently, and Dad would normally give a word of praise. Dad loved taking sightseeing trips to Mountain Pine Ridge. Dad traveled a lot and took me on a number of trips. Visit grandparents in Canada, went to Houston Cattle Show, bring down a new truck through Mexico, and he taught me to love travel. I miss you, Dad. Okay, your time, immediate family, or yeah. there's a little bit of singing that can fill in the gaps if somebody wants to get ready. When you dot all of al beach side that Chayak Valley.
Yeah, I have a lot of good memories with my dad too from the childhood. I remember also going along with him to Blee City in the Western Areas milk delivery truck to the British Army camps, and that was always a fun trip. You know, you could eat on the restaurants that we normally didn't go eat out much in the restaurants back then, but then we could have breakfast on the restaurant and stuff like that. A lot of good memories going along to Blee City with him on a truck full of cattle to the behind the airport. There was a big slaughterhouse. We took cattle there with Ben Panner, and so I remember those trips a lot. They were always fun trips. Stopping on the roads and getting a soft drink always a highlight too. And yeah, so his highlight was always, you know, when you go to Blee City early, he would have breakfast somewhere, and that was always special. He always took, well, not always, but he would take one of us at a time. You know, we never had, well, maybe once in a while the two of us would have gone together, but mostly one boy at a time or one of the girls. I don't know if the girls went or not. I guess they did. But anyway, boys got rides, and he also took me to cattle shows, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, he let me take care of the cattle ranch when maybe around 15, 16 years old. Peter was busy farming crops, so he let me take care of the cows, and I really enjoyed that. And he would always support me and told me I could decide which cow to keep and which one to sell. And that was, I felt very big that I could do that, to make my own decisions. But yeah, he was gone so much that, you know, we had to make our own decisions most of the times because he was busy doing something else. Milking cows early in the morning, go to Western Dairies and taking milk, and then come back and drive the grader a couple hours, and then bring up some cattle for the next day to take to Blee City, and then milk the cows again. And that was his life. Yeah, he never kept still. And when the floods came, yeah, that was his highlight. He would call Mick Fleming at Chalk Creek and ask how far the river is rising, how fast, and they had to run up the cows up on the hill and go to the ferry and make sure the ferry didn't float away. And oh yeah, when, I don't know if that was Hurricane Greta that came by, then our cows got trapped and they all floated down the river, and I thought that was the end of the world because, you know, I saw my dad crying. So man, that must have been, and of course I love the cows as much as he did. I was about 4 or 5 years old, I'm not too sure. Anyway, and I saw him crying and the cows were all gone. I don't know how many there were, but 50 head, all down the river. Thought they'd be gone forever. And then here they come down by Marinette Beach. They come back on the shore, and I think about, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them got missing, but all the rest came ashore. So that was a miracle, we thought. We thought they were gone. I know there was one cow in there, I think that later Uncle Klaus bought that had gone down the river too. I remember the cow had curved horns, and there was a dark gray Brahma cow that Uncle Klaus had later. I think that cow was one of them that got swept down the river. But I remember that. Yeah, so there's a lot of good memories. In the later years, I know he had trouble with his eye, hair growing into his eye, and so I did many a trip with him to the eye doctor in Blee City, and that gave us a lot of time to talk, and I enjoyed that. And yeah, when he was getting weaker, he told me that he really was sorry that he didn't take more time for us, and I said, you know, I just remember the good days, and I enjoyed the time he spent with us. But yeah, I know that we did a lot of times we were on our own, but I still remember a lot of good times. He gave me a new horse and a saddle when I was 21, I think, and he let me raise a cow from when I was, I don't think, 17. He gave me a calf, and he said I could feed it all the feed I wanted to, so I made sure it had a lot of feed. So it was 1 year old and weighed 1,000 pounds. So, yeah. So I guess he didn't watch me feeding it. So, yeah, Dad, we'll miss you.
Yeah, I also have lots of special memories. Um, One of them I was thinking now was I enjoy going to Blee City with my dad sometime on a six-wheel truck. On the way home, he would let me drive, and sometimes he would give lots of instructions on the way. Now you do this and don't do that. And I was thinking he was overdoing it, but I think I'm glad for the advice he gave me how to drive, and I was glad when he fell asleep, and I could drive in peace. And another thing that was very special to me was when our first baby was supposed to be born, and it went overdue, and we were waiting, and my dad had planned to go to Mexico for cattle show, and he was considering canceling his trip if our baby wasn't born yet. And I felt really special because I knew he really loved to go to those shows, and I could hardly believe that he would consider staying home if our baby wasn't born yet. But I think it was born just before he wanted to go. So, yeah, another thing that he has done a lot the last years when he was in bed, I would spend my day there. He would not talk much anymore, but now and then he would call. If he would see me in the kitchen, he could look from his bed, he could look through to the kitchen table. He would call, "Mary, come here." And that was very special to me. But the last year, he really didn't do that anymore because his mind was worse. He didn't talk so much. Just 2 weeks ago, he did it again. Not as clear, but I heard it. And that just blessed my heart to hear it one more time. I'll really miss him.
I learned to appreciate my father-in-law, and I know that he appreciated me. From the first time I talked to him concerning a relationship with his daughter, I felt appreciated and accepted. One saying that he sometimes had was that the sons-in-law were the best people because they took care of his daughters. So I really felt accepted and appreciated by him.
Okay, thank you. Let's have some singing here.
one of the few grandkids that has a lot of memories yet of doing things with grandfather together. Most of the grandchildren, they got to know him or build a relationship with him when he was already sick. And one of my earliest memories with grandfather was when I got a ride with him to Reimer's Service Center. And I don't know exactly what he was doing there, but I do remember him bragging to the others that I was his oldest granddaughter. And somehow that stayed with me all these years. And one of the things that I really enjoyed doing with him together was when he was milking. I would often go along to the barn and watch him milk, watch my uncles milk cows. And in the later years, we shared a lot of the same interest. And there was a certain thing that I used to do every Saturday before my brothers were old enough to do it. I had to go to grandparents every Saturday, and I had to try to hitch that trailer, cattle trailer, to my dad's truck. And I eventually had it perfected fairly well that I could just swing around and reverse right up to it, and I didn't even need to spend a lot of time with it. Well, this one day, grandfather happened to be on the porch, and he saw me pull up. And he came out and he wanted to help me. And I was like, no, I think I've got this. He's like, no, I don't think you do. And I'm like, well, you can try. You can help me if you want to. But I ended up doing it just like I always did. And he looks at me, he's like, yeah, you really did get this. So that was pretty good. And there's one more thing that I knew. There was one more test I had to pass in order to receive grandfather's favor. And I was a driver for him one time when they went to Belize City. They were on a doctor's appointment, and I was supposed to drive because nobody else had time. And I was nervous the whole way to Belize City, but when we came back, he looks at me, and he's like, you did really well. And that was probably the best compliment I ever got from him.
Okay, thanks, Aswa.
I have multiple memories from grandfather. Had to dig them up a bit though. Sometimes it seems over time they hide, and once you see pictures, they all come flooding back. Remember when I don't remember how old I was, but I didn't like to eat vegetables for some reason. Cabbage and all that. And then I was at grandparents one day, and then grandfather sat me down and he said, you know that it is very good for your health if you do eat them? And somehow that stuck with me, and from that day on I ate vegetables. And us grandkids and boys, we would often go to the shed. We'd always be playing in the barn, all over the rafters and everything. But then if grandfather would see us in the shed, where he could see us from the house, and he'd see us climb up inside the garage up onto the rafters, and he would see us. Boy, we had to get down there fast and run hide because he was coming for us, because he had told us enough times to not do that because it was too dangerous. And we always lived life on the edge of when we went there. We always knew that it was a challenge to get up there without grandfather seeing us. And also later years, the memories of me driving to the city, taking him to the doctor's appointments as well, that he always said speed limit is, what was it, speed limit is 55. And then, but I always kept it at 65, and Mom always said, oh, it's okay, you can just, as long as he doesn't see how fast you're going, you're good. But I had it up 70, 75 sometimes when he was along. He never commented anything on it. I'm not sure if he noticed it all the time. But usually I would keep it at 65. One thing he always said that I will always remember is that it doesn't matter if you're going 55 or 75, you'll still get to Belize City around the same time. Because if there's a lot of traffic, if you speed, well, eventually you have to slow down anyway. At the end of the day, you just drove reckless and you're there at the same time because of the amount of traffic. So a couple of good, more things of advice that I have gotten from him that I'll always remember.
Okay, thank you. Ja, een paar hadden waar van 5 ropen. Hij had een liederstem en hij legde te brukken, maar daar met afwijzen met, want naar de 5 voor dat 5 ropen dat we helemaal zien denk. Gaan we doen het.
So I am one of the middle grandchildren, I think, but I still have a lot of good memories with my grandfather. I started riding like around 10, 11 years ago, and he seemed to be really, really proud about that fact. So I would usually always, when I'd go riding, I'd try to go riding almost every day. I'd always go to grandparents because at that time of day, he would always be sitting outside on the porch. I always told myself he was waiting for me, but I think he was just sitting there anyway because it was his favorite spot. And I would go there, and I'd sit there with him for like an hour, and he would tell me all about horses and cows and try to teach me how to tie ropes, but I was so young it went all straight over my head, but I pretended to be very, very interested. And he had a lot, he seemed to have a lot to teach me, and I really wish that I could have kept that up in the later years as well. But yeah, the last 5 years was pretty different. But one of the last conversations I had with him, I know he didn't really know who I was then anymore, but I was babysitting him for a few hours, and I went and talked with him, and I asked him how his day was going, and no, he wasn't having a good day. I'm like, well, what we could do so he could have a good day. And he's like, well, he wishes that he could be outside somewhere in a big open field with a lot of cows on his horse and just chasing cows. That's just what he wishes he could be doing. And I said that I think one day he'll do that again. And so I like to imagine that right now he's on a horse somewhere and just galloping as fast as he possibly can, because that's what he really wanted to do. And yeah, so that was some special memories I have with him. We're gonna try to sing a song, if we're not too nervous. I think it's a song that's been playing in our minds, in a lot of our minds the last few days. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. I know your life on earth was trouble, and only you could know the pain. You weren't afraid to face life's battles. You were no stranger to the rain. The chorus high on the mountain, 'cause on your work on earth is done. Go to heaven and shouting, love for the Father and the Son. Oh, how we cried the day you left us. We gathered round your grave to grieve. Wish I could see the angels' faces when they hear your sweet voice sing. The chorus high on the mountain, 'cause on your work on earth is done. Go to heaven and shouting, love for the Father and the Son. The chorus high on the mountain, 'cause on your work on earth is done. Go to heaven the Father and the Son. Love for the Father and the Son.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That was good. One thing I'd like to just say for myself, after my dad's last big accident, it changed his life in some ways, and we sometimes wish the brave Joe Friesen to be back and do all that thing, but he was slow. He didn't really want to do much out of his comfort zone. He didn't want to go to the bank to deposit money. We pushed him a little bit. Yeah, you can go. When he come by, he would like to come by where I was working and bring me a Coke from DARP and where I was on the grader. And sometimes I got him to ride or drive the grader for me for a little bit. He didn't really want to, but he would, and then it would work pretty good. I remember one time being in the garage where he would literally come to the garage and encourage me in a spiritual way. I don't know what he said, and maybe that doesn't matter either. The only spiritual encouragement that I remember from him, but I think it was worth remembering.
I remember my dad, he had a very loud voice. He would have never needed these speakers here. You could hear, everybody could hear him from a mile away. When we had that old crank phone and people would call and then people would stand a mile away and they could listen in beside, hear what he was talking on the phone. And then I remember my Uncle Corny, I always went with him hauling cattle when I was a little kid, before I was big enough, and they would drive down the road in a tractor. I heard him coming from Martin Saipaner, past being Wolf there. I heard them talking loud to each other. They've been talking all the way. That's how they drove and hauled cows all day when they were hauling cattle with a tractor and trailer. So I remember that very well. My Uncle Corny and Dad hauling cattle. And when I got big enough, I remember going with him and a tractor a lot too. We hauled cattle almost all the way to Kyle with a tractor and trailer. So back in then, I didn't have trucks. Yep, so my dad had a very loud voice, and he would call the cows, and they heard it from a mile away. They'd come running. Yep, so, and I guess I got part of it too.
Okay, anybody, immediate family? If not, open mic, Ben Penner.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, my name was mentioned here a few times, so maybe I needed to say a few words. I have spent years with Joe hauling cattle, enjoyed the time. We have been from Corzal to PG, from border to border. We have hauled cattle into Mexico. We have hauled cattle into Guatemala. We have hauled cattle a lot. Usually it was on Tuesdays going to Belize City with a load about every Tuesday. Monday he hauled cattle together here with a tractor and trailer, Pina 135 Massey Friesen, and then get the load ready and go to Belize City in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. That was 6 in the morning. I have been hauling for him a short while, and then once I was a few minutes after 6 at his yard, and then he said, "Du bas fel till load here." And I figured, yeah, I'll never try that again. That didn't matter. 4 o'clock in the morning, if it was arranged 4 o'clock in the morning, I mean 4 o'clock in the morning. Or whatever, you know. So there were certain things that I knew. And while traveling, eating in restaurants, we never kept any record of who pays, or usually it was just today you pay and today I pay, and if it was a steak or if it was a rice and beans, it didn't matter who. But for no hack, but told Mori Costu, but kind of that way, you know. We never kept any record. We enjoyed it. I did enjoy it. Yeah, there's lots I could mention about. And once in Kyle, we had a very wild bull. All that is certain was in front of my truck over the corner, out, mirror broke off yet, and right in town. And that didn't take long. There were horses our own, Joe Friesen, and what not all was on the streets. And, well, we have, yeah, there's lots we could mention yet, I guess. You hear all the cattle exporting. That was one of the highlights for him, doing that. Many days, I mean, many trips, different boat loads we have. It's not just one time, it's lots of time we've been hauling. If I hauled a load of cattle for him to Belize City and I brought a load of cement back, that was not that his load or whatever should be half price this time. No, it was full load paid going and full load paid coming back. Whatever was for me to bring back, that was my money, it was not his. So he was very understandable what, yeah. Anyway, that was Joe.
Thank you, Ben. That yeah, appreciate sharing that. Yeah. Uncle Deidre.
I just want to mention a little bit of my brother also. And he was a cattleman from way before he married. He was the first cattleman in Spanish Lookout. He did pulling cows and bulls from a ranch to the house, sometimes with a mule, tying the rope on the tail, and he walked behind the bulls or the cows, and that's how he transported cattle. Very long ago, probably 1962 or before. And one time I know he pulled a bull to butcher from Henry C. Panner, that is up there where Clarence Reimer lived. And then there was the bridge by Buddelmalik down there by the hill. There was a Bhutan bridge, and the bull didn't want to cross there. And the mule, he went back with the back leg like that on the Bhutan, and then he hauled on like that, and the bull could slide. And that's how he pulling cattle together. And helping Abram Friesen to get his cattle business going on, Willer Reimer. And so he was in cattle business from since long. And when he used to haul cattle to sell to Belize City, then he had an old Massey Ferguson, like how this guy just said now, with a two-wheel trailer. And then at Malahike, where Jaira School is right now, there we had a corral with a scale. That was the first scale in Spanish Lookout, cattle scale. And then before Ben Panner, he started with John Dick. He had a Mercury light green truck that brought freight from Mexico, what Hans Knelson brought. And then later John Dick, he hauled cattle. And then later John Dick had a newer one, Ford with a cattle box, red. I don't know if you guys remember that. They come pull up cattle from Malahike. Right there, Bernard Dick's, that's where he used to haul it on Monday, yes, Monday early. And then Tuesday morning, they take it to Belize City. And one spell, it was already on his farm where he could get the cattle together, but I was with him. And then they pull a bull from Abe Lowen. And that bull didn't want to come on. They had to pull it with a rope. And that was like a mixed bull, like Holstein breed or something. Pretty tough bull with wrong horns. And then once the bull had to come in the trailer, that rope was stretched so far, one boom, that bull was on the end gate in the front there, and that bull was mad. Okay, and the next day morning when they took that load of cattle to Belize City, that was exactly the bull, bore him his leg and pushed him off the truck and threw him on the street there where he had knocked his elbows. That was very serious that time. And he suffered a long time. And then They had to take him to the hospital there, and they put some hoses in there for drain the liquid, and then they had to run home because there was a hurricane coming. And I was in Billy City with him that time, but I ran a little bit earlier. But in the night, they had to come home with Vanis Canelson, with what was it? With 6 people in a regular cab truck because the hurricane was coming. And then they came home into his bed, and then Mandal was supposed to be attend to him there. And he didn't do proper care, and then not one of the hose dropped in behind the muscle and the bone. That suffered. Oh, he had to suffer. He went to Canada and take operation with that. And so, I mean, there is lots of experience I had with Brother Joe, right there with the cable there at the ferry there, where he lost the crank, where he broke his leg. I went with him with Manolo and Tbilisi City, Cabrera Hospital, and then that's where he got operation there. I was the first night with him there. And yeah, that van was parking there by Manopedic for a long while. I think now it's gone, but that was a 1-ton van with all those bumps. Whew, that was terrible for him to go to Tbilisi City. Yeah, so there's many more, but anyway, this is part of it. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle Dietrich. Okay, just a few more, and I think I should wrap it up.
Yeah, I had a privilege of marrying the oldest daughter of Joe Friesen. And he was always walking kind of stiff-kneed. He had a problem with his knee after that accident at the ferry. And I remember one time we had visitors here from Canada, I think, and we went to the Maya ruins. And he was carrying our oldest daughter, Clara. He was coming down the steps, and he got off balance, and he threw himself backwards because he thought he was going to flip forward over because it was those steep steps there. And then he had to bend his knee, his stiff knee. And he said it cracked like it was broken, but after that it was more loose. From there on he could walk better. Yeah, we talked about the ferry and the bridge. I have had a privilege of helping him fix under his supervision. Me and Peter have worked together with building repairing flaps at the ferry, tying up the ferry. But one time he said, I actually verbrucht. He couldn't do anything. I said, no, we'll take care of it. That was the time when we were too much in a hurry, and we brought that ferry over, and we had the clamps were not tight enough, and they came off, and we had this poor Isaac on the ferry, a 15-year-old kid, wherever he was, and he had to bring us the motorboat. He had never driven the boat as that because the ferry was loose on the river. That was not my father-in-law's favorite time at that there. But Iguana Creek Bridge, I should step back to the ferry one time. One time was a very high flood, and Manolo and my father-in-law were on the ferry, and me and Peter Friesen. Peter, we were there, and they had decided we should tie the ferry so and so. And me and Peter had thought we'd do it a little different. So we did not make action right away because we were first thinking how to do this. And Abe Lowen was getting impatient. No, sorry, Manolo Lowen. Why aren't those guys starting to work? And I heard my father-in-law say, oh, don't worry, they'll get to it yet. They'll first digest what they'll do, and then they'll do that. Because the river was very high already, and we had to tie that ferry that it would stay on the south side. That was our job. Done it many times, crossing the ferry or crossing the river with the motorboat. There was one rule he had: never at night, and never with the big windows. Don't go there, but we still did. When he wasn't there, me and Peter, we would still take the chances there. So, yeah, and Iguana Creek Bridge, he was supervising there to build that one, and I was part of the manager there. He has taught me many things, and I really appreciated my father-in-law.
Okay, thank you. All right, anybody? John F., hast du noch was sagen? Aller gut?
Ik kan niet veel te zeggen, maar als ik China zei, hij allemaal grapefruitjes milk en hij milkt zeer veel grapefruitjes.
Ja, koffie drinken met 5 lepel suiker, dat brengt allemaal te ons toe. En chai is we allemaal nu om daar.
Ik weet best wel hoe ik wel afhang. Or zal ik Engels? Because Santi zal het niet verstaan. Ik was hier met nervous voor en ik hoop ik kan het echt pullen. Wenn ik het niet in predigen. Ik kon daar heen gaan, dat wil je merken. Plus die mensen krijgt lek. Het vloot dat allebei weg. Ik weet meestal hoe ik zal afhangen. Ik weet zeer jong. Ik werd al bevrijd. Maar Jozef Friesen kon mij samen kon hij mij een doen aantragen dat ik in de board of directors word bij de association. Dan van daar wordt dat like aan waar zij mij vrij interesseren deed. En dan van daar zei dat John weet wat we willen een show voor. Tussen mij, was met, kost met mij met. Maar ik bus hotel betoel. Alright, ik laat me bereden. En ik leef hier een jaar en lijkt niet een jaar gemist, zolang wat ik weet, wie een zin gezondheid heeft kunt. Wat we niet zijn topje voor. En dat is zeer schön. Ik wil niet doen, maar dat feit, want hij niet bijvoet. En dat wordt zeer op. En hij heeft, we hebben veel uitgetuscht. En hij zei dus, ik wil hier niet helemaal zijn. En dan moet hij weer dat leiden. Wat hij in de goal had. En ik weet niet waarom, maar somewhere wat hij dat geval dan. Maar we twee verschillende families werden, maar we hadden dezelfde idee en dezelfde lijn en dezelfde goal. En ik heb eenmaal, nadat even dan, ik voet veel met, maar even dan werd hij niet meer de leider. Dan werd ik op eenmaal de leider. Hij voert en ik vertaald en ik maak connections. En next dan zit er nu wel een Houston voor. En van die trips wat we in Houston gemerkt hebben, ik heb embryos nagebracht, dat ik dort connections wat hij de opmerking deed voor mij, Tim Brangus, Red Brangus. Ik heb een loorbal nagebracht en even den kaufte ik me nog Brangus storken. Bracht ik die op hier durch Mexico, ik had dat niet gedaan, ik had dus vrienden met connections wat Jozef Friesen had je mij helpen merken met de Mexicanen en even den mocht ik mijn ene vriend, zij terug had je vriend. En Cornelius wordt nog Hector Cortés gaan. En die mögen dat allmählich, dat we dat vrij kunnen brengen, de Mexicaner, de Yucatanische, die zijn immer waar, want dat fehlt, we wollen je halten. En dort heeft zij schijn gegaan. De einmal Fall, dat is wanneer ik een haai om te zien weer. En die Tjenger, dat is zich zijn beroep. Der Verken von den Gerät. Aber wir haben der Rest in die Haus. Da wird ihm sehr wichtig. Also ich weiß, John, ich habe nicht einen Jungen, der dort interessiert, was mich tut. Oder die schaffen alle, die merken, er wiederkommt. Aber es ist von der nicht wollen, der ist weiter Reis merken, aber nur die Expos vor. Aber mir lässt so die ihre Scheine mir auch, und solange sie können, dann war wir top vorne, und wir haben auch. Was ich nicht belebt habe, heißt lebendig was, aber ich weiß nicht, dass das Jämmelskloe merkt. Ja, für das Legal Export, was wir noch in Mexiko nicht haben, du hast das ja für geschafft. Aber das ist die Zeit geworden, dass es aufgegangen ist, ganz vorher geworden, was er in sie Bad gelegen. So, ich weiß nicht, das Amt, das ist, aber das ist ein Down, aber das wird seine Goal dann werden. Und einige Brück wird nicht alle weiten, was wir down. Und er vielleicht gehabt, dass die nächste Generation, die würde das wieder nehmen. Und nachher denke ich, die wollen vielleicht wundern, warum ich so Deutsch reden da. Vielleicht rede ich nicht in wer über jeder down, aber der hat mich verärgert. Reich gemerkt, wenn ich was gesagt habe, und das wird nicht reich werden. Und das verdrüge ich auch fahren. Aber ich war Luther ein Ding an, der verdrügt das nicht von viel, wenn der am Vers ein, wenn die vorne, aber für mich verdrügt die das. Ich sehe was einmal, ich sehe, weißt du was, ich schon ich am Joe war, Joseph Friesen. Ich true dat u was vorn, aber ich lebe 4 Uhr und es sicher als 2. Dann sagt er, ja, du bist reich uns. Aber allgemein vertraue ich dort nicht, das leid herüt. Aber er sagt, von die kann ich dort nehmen. I don't know, was da wird, aber da wird was zwischen uns, dass wir uns, so ja, gut schauen. Und das letzte Mal, was ich am Denken, was ich mit am gesehen habe, da wird ich die Band am Hof, wird Corny erklärt, wie das letzte Mal, dann wirst du gewohnt am Hof. Dann frage ich, was der mit den Fuhrern, na, der ist gut, der ist tüß, was nicht gut, ja, und gehen wir. Und ich weiß, bis wer er wird. Der Jenke sagt, wir kommen dann, und dann kommen wir bei der, und dann gereist, und dann nobody steht sich einmal, und dann sagt er so, ich glaube nicht schnell. 3 Arme möchte der Ton. Stund Corny dann und beste noch sagt Corny, du wirst nicht sein. Ich weiß krank. Ich glaube, ich weiß krank, wo er sich gefallen hat. Daher, dort wird die Zeit, wo er depressed, weiß, dass er sich. Aber dort wird alles gut. Ich habe dort noberen, was ich will. Und er wisst, was er wird, aber dat wird alle goed. Ik vond het best interessant dat hij best einmal niet weet nu naar mij der toon wie kon gaan. Maar dat zijn goede aangedenken van hem. En ik weet dat voor some van jullie wordt dat nog wichtig worden. Wenn ik zou dat niet einmal nog een paar jaar was, because ik kon dat niet, den du sein. Aber ik wil niet zo'n Joseph Friesen im Kopf haben und ich hatte ihn noch. Und von der vertelt einer Wort von Blue Creek, wieder bin stur, Blue Creek Union. Ich hab Deck von Blue Creek, Rosita, ich glaube, some von Ihnen wollen weiten, wer das wird. Also eine Geschichte, was mir denkt, von den Joseph Friesen, oder das, und das ist die Zeit, wo er so clean wird. Und dann hat Duf Karema, wenn ich reich sehe, einen Truck, und dann für ihn der hat vorne. Der hat sich ganz nie ein Food gekauft. Der hat AC gehabt und alles. Der hat einen Fanbox. Dann werden die sich kommen einen Ball anschauen von seinen Schwiegervater. Dort werden Platzen in einer Baltenfamilie. Und dann hat sich den Ball angeschaut und ich habe sie mit denen in den Truck den Ball holen. Und dann sagt der Ball, da wird ein sehr fraktes Stück Ball. Er sagt, er konnte nervös, er wird schwer sein, der Ball der Familie. Er sagt, er konnte nervös im Stall sein. die Ball in den Stärk wird. Dann haben sie den in den Stärk gekriegt, dann haben sie den 2 Stränge umbinden, dann noch eine Kette am Hals, dann backen sie Traktor dabei, dann binden sie die Kette am Traktor, den was du schlafen, und dann Gas, das ist about, ich weiß nicht, 500 Schau, 600 Schau, wo sie dann heim schlafen, bei dem Truck so eine Kant beibackt am Weg, die konnte noch sein, das denkt mich noch. Und dat je dat weet. En dan hadden ze de beibackt en dan hadden ze de vloer had 2 lagen ver, een rechte zijde en een linker zijde, dan hadden ze de streng door daar gestapt. Dan had ze een schwerer, wil den Traktor fahren, en eerst had hij zo opdekt, dan had hij opdekt zijn schwerer gezegd, hij wil, dan had hij gezegd, kost ik wel. Hij wil richtig bij den Ball zijn. En schließlich hadden ze die keer losgekregen van Traktor. Dan slapen ze den, reden ze den dan op. Die wil niet komen, die bal erin. De Fähren komen, nou, ik wil voet komen. Eenmaal dan komt die bal aan en zei hij weer. Ja, Friesen weer de Fähren even trak gefahren over de kap en dan zei die bal ook. Die moet hij gewoon.
Wat heb je vrouw?
Ja, Friesen wird verabgewacht. Ja, die Dad wird verabgewacht. Anyways, dann wird der Strang stiegen was. Und ich wieder den Truck in der Windschild uns zu bieten hielt. Und dann hat er den Strang neu geladen, also da war er muss rauf, dann war er am Rieten, dann hat er fertig gekriegt und dann sagt er, dann hat er, willst du dich ein Wirt bogen was? Er sagt, dann hat er Josef Friesen den Ball angebogen. Er sagt, ein Strang nach der Hack und ein Hack nach der Hack und dann werden in die Hüsse vor.
Ohne AC.
Ohne AC. So, das passt nur.
Well, that's a nice story, yeah.
Ja, dat is interessant. Maar ik weet dat ik kan dat goed. Waar Ben Penner veel van je 4 dagen ook voor die. Die hadden blijven een voer met een blijven box en dan nog een trailer hingen rond. Maar ik wens je familie alle beste. Er wordt een stuk studieren. Dat lachelijk wordt allemaal blijven. Dat wordt de nevers wegkomen. En mijn vader zal 23 jaar weg. Feiert heel veel. En hij starb van papa zijn geburtsdag. Zo dat wordt helemaal blijven.
John, thank you. Thank you, John Aftik. Hij is een van Dad zijn goede vriend. John Dick Senior, gelijk zijn dad, en hij is John F. Junior. Doof Dick, de uncle, mijn dad zijn goede vriend in Blue Creek en road construction. So ja, ik heb veel van John F. gehoord, so I guess dat stemt gelijk correct. Okay, ik leef pretty much wat we wel oprappen. Daar af podding gedaan, wat ons maken we lachen nu als hij krank weer in bad. En we weer ik en ben daar twee van ons beiden aan de stoel en wat zien hem uit weer de eerste 3 jaar hij veel meer Europa deed van een bad van hem weer mam kom her, mam kom her, mam kom her, dat had hij 500 miljoen mooi zijn. En dan mam kom je dan ook mam en wie niet helemaal nedig te komen, tja mam kon je gewoon naar stoel en wat veelt, de jongens worden nog weten. En het moet dan, hij had zeer mooi dat we door 10 minuten weer bij was en had hem 3 vrouwen te veel gevraagd, dan hoofd de hand een beetje op en dan werd dan zowel een beetje hem gezegd slaan en dan gaat me rit. En dan rit mag dat ook. Dan zou ik nog schruipsend holen. Hij heeft niks in gaan schruipsend gehoord. En dat werd ook wel gekund, want dan wisten waar hij gaan, denk ik zo. Maar hij had een frustration, maar hij weer niet bezig, wie namen dat niet slag aan. Okay, eins erst noch.
Ik enjoy weer dezelfde klas. En ik heb iemand gezegd, oh ja, in de school je moet iemand aan te zitten. En dan maak ik school.
Dat we zien stiefbroeder Manuel Dick, heeft 7 jaar met hem op de schoolbank gezeten, bij een school gewoon in Mexico. Ja. Okay, anything else? Okay, thanks for coming. Appreciate your support. Okay, family kan wel ik helpen stellen op zaten en deze ganze gasten het fijn. En we hebben er wel helpen. Kan niet te veel bijna blijven, dan hebben we niet gerum.